Financial IQ, and she is the founder. And here she is. Good morning.
Good morning. How are
I'm terrific. How are you?
you? Fantastic.
It's great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Oh, good. Well, finance is such a big part of everything, and I'm a big believer that we need to make a lot of money so that we have and can shop for what we want. And I am unabashedly proud to create abundance so that I can do more and give more uh, of what I have to others. Why are so many people afraid to receive or have the relationship with money that somehow it's bad or good? It's just an energy.
Right. And it's so funny because I was just listening to the answers to your questions, and two of your answers actually answer this question as well. So I feel that ourselves oftentimes gets in our way with our relationships with monies. And there is something called money scripts, which is something that you are learned with as well. So it could even come from your mom or your parent or your upbringing. So these are sort of those relationships you have with money that are sort of the very basics of what you sort of need to analyze once you start thinking about money.
And obviously, you focus in on women and her financial IQ. We
Yes,
have
I
genetic.
do.
We have That's great, and we have genetic and energetic inheritances, as you said. They could be scripts, and they can carry a scarce perspective that goes beyond just money, but wealth and happiness, and this idea between giving, receiving, and asking all are related or relative to money. How is it different between women and men in general? Obviously, there's outliers and exceptions to everything, but in general, are there differences between the relationship with money between men and women?
Well, I there is and there isn't. So there are stereotypes. So there are stereotypes that men are typically good with money. There are stereotypes that women are typically not so good with money. And I feel also, well, this it's interesting how that you're asking this because it's not cut and dry. Because again, these relationships with monies are relationships and they are feelings. And believe it or not, it is a feeling. It really is. And it's kind of interesting. But when I started off on my journey, originally I wanted to teach women how to trade. My background is finance. I was on Wall Street for almost 20 years. And when I left Wall Street to be a stay-at-home mom, I didn't grow up with money, but I feel like I created a relationship with money. I rewrote my money scripts, which everyone can do. Everyone can rewrite their money scripts. And I was out there. It was the funny thing. I'm like, you know what? Of course, there's a bunch of stay-at-home moms out there that are really super smart that want to start trading. Like that was my mentality. That's the thought process I had. And I went to the baseball fields. I went to the soccer fields with all the stay-at-home moms. And they're like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's so scary. My husband does the finances," and I really couldn't believe it. I was like, "Really? No one wants to learn how to trade?" And it was that point in time that I realized that I just needed to teach women the basics of investing. Like, what is a stock? What is an ETF? What is that first conversation you're going to have if you go into the office with the financial advisor? So this was my investing for beginners class that I created. And then what I realized was that a lot of women came to me because they want to invest their way out of debt. And that's sort of like going to Vegas to try to get debt free. It really doesn't work that way. So I created a course before investing for beginners called Before Investing, which is talking about your financial ducks, all those things you want to get in a row before you start investing, like paying off bad debt, setting up an emergency fund, getting your savings, getting your budgeting. So these are all the things that you want to do so you can create a surplus. And that's really what you were talking about, right? Creating the surplus.
And to generate wealth, a lot of people don't know, even if they're not in debt, they have, and I always say you can't overachieve your own self-image, a self-image or a limitation on or a thermostat with their own finances, their own wealth. Do you help people realign as you talk about this script, their own self-image as far as what their capabilities and capacities are? I know part of the resistance that people have about, hey, you should trade or do this is they just don't see themselves in great abundance.
I'm glad you brought that up because absolutely it is part of the overall financial makeover that we do, so to say, which is not only, but we also have to be careful. We have to be careful, and this is why we have to be careful, because if we try to live beyond our means to keep up with this ideation, then that is dangerous too, right? So there is a balance between manifesting and have an eye on the future. A lot of women I work with make, idea boards and they put it on their bedroom wall. So every morning when they wake up, they say, okay, I'm dreaming of that new car. I'm dreaming of that vacation. Right. But they're not going out there and immediately doing it, immediately putting on their credit card and immediately getting into debt. No, they are working on a goal. They are working towards that idea of where they want to be.
And to that measure, there's another thing that I think everyone overlooks, not just women, and it's timing and risk tolerance. People get it,
Yes.
they don't understand how important it is. I always say that if you know your timing and risk tolerance, you may be disappointed in the outcome, but you'll never be resentful or feel guilty about the outcome. It's when we don't know that timing and risk tolerance. Do you help people learn about aligning their timing and risk tolerance with where they want to be or better, that car, that vacation, or other investments that they may make?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up risk tolerance because that is such a huge part of investing. Like even if you go to a financial advisor for that first time, they're gauging your risk tolerance, and also where you are with your life stages. So in before investing, we really do talk about that. We talk about the life stages and saving for those life stages. We do start an introduction to risk because we talk about where we want to put our savings accounts, whether it's a high yield savings account, whether it's a CD, whether it's a money market, where we want to put that savings. So we're still receiving the highest return on those monies, putting those monies to work, even if it's not in the markets. And then in my Investing for Beginners course, that's when we really start talking about our risk tolerance and various types of assets out there and the riskiness behind them.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people also don't utilize the trust and vet side of things, especially with financial planners or even fiduciaries. Through my experience, some of my biggest mistakes have been trusting people without vetting them. And
Yes,
it's a level deeper where I'm at today, in my mid 50s, where I've learned not only to trust everyone, but to vet the shit out of them. And when
yes,
you vet the shit out of people, vet the data that they're relying on. Because what I found about, especially brokers, is they're relying on the house. And if they're given bad data, then really good intentioned people will give you bad advice or bad data or data that's not aligned with your timing and risk tolerance. And I have found, most of the losses that I've taken since 2008 were my own accountability of not vetting people properly. What are some of the key questions that people can ask that are key red flags that someone may not know what the F they're talking about?
well, you are so spot on with this, and there's a couple things that I want to bring up because in my Investing for Beginners course, I actually talk about how to shop for a financial advisor for women. But I feel like one of the biggest things you can do first of all, is just to keep the shop for the best. A lot of people don't understand that you can shop for a financial advisor. You can shop for the highest APY. So you can actually shop. You don't have to, go with the first financial advisor. So interview three. I like to say interview three financial advisors first and think of it as a long-term relationship. Okay. Like, and go with your gut. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not loving this person. I'm not loving this person at all. And especially if they're talking down to you or making you feel insignificant, that's not the way a financial advisor should be treating you. So go into it as first of all, as someone that you want to spend a long time. It's almost like a long-term relationship, right? You're not going to go into a long-term relationship with someone that doesn't make you feel good. So I really want everyone to trust their gut. That is a big indicator of a person and what really makes them tick. The other thing to think about is AUM. Now, assets under management is AUM. Now, there's two things to think about when you think about AUM. So you don't necessarily want someone with a low AUM or starting out because they might not know all the answers that you're looking for. Conversely, you don't want a firm with a huge AUM either because they might not have time for you. So somewhere in the middle is usually a really good sweet spot, depending on how many assets you have. Now, if you are just starting out, if you just have, like $500 or $100 to invest, and you can't afford a financial advisor, some financial advisors, their minimums are anywhere from $5,000 to $1 million. Yeah, they do require minimums. But with the democratization of investing in firms like Wealthfront and Acorns, people that don't necessarily have those large chunks of cash to put away into the market can get investing as well. So I went down a rabbit hole. As you
That's
can tell,
good.
I'm really passionate about this. So sorry if I'm just like
No, that's
running
why I
away with
have you
this and
on.
like ticking
I
it
love
off.
it. No, well, that's why I asked the questions because I think there's a lot of people. One of the things that I've learned throughout the years is that a lot of times we just assume that people know, and the
Yes.
majority of the people don't know. And so I do my best to bring people on that do knows and that can talk about things that we may assume everybody gets, but most of the people don't. And so I think it's really important to go down the rabbit hole and explain the scenarios and situations, the options and opportunities to help people with some of the basics. And that's why I wanted to have you on, is there's a lot of great information to start out, even pre-investing, to
Yes.
set the mindset, the heart set, the handset, to write new scripts for yourself. There's a variety of different strategies and advice that can be given. And Jessica is someone who has no vested interest other than empowering, especially women, at her fine IQ, HERFINIQ. It's a great place to go to learn how to get started. And thank you, Jessica. We'll have you back on. We're in New
Thank you
York
so
often,
much.
so come meet up with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me and happy Personal Finance Month.
Happy
I don't
Personal
know.
Finance Month.
Did we even know that it was Personal Finance
I
Month?
did, I did, but there's so many
Okay.
different months, and I celebrate everything. I celebrate everything celebratable. So thank you for allowing me to celebrate our Happy Personal Finance Month here in April. And it's not April Fool's Day, so it is real. It's April 2nd. So thanks so
Oh,
much.
wonderful. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, check out
Bye.
Jessica. She's amazing.